All right. Hi, everybody. It's Lindsay with High Altitude Astrology, and I'm here today with my friend Leah, who has agreed to come on the show and talk about the new moon in Leo that's going to happen coming up here on the 18th of August. And we're going to discuss that chart. Leah is, like I said, a friend, but I've also discussed astrology with her, and I feel like she has a really natural kind of intuitive understanding of it. So I wanted to bring her on because I've been looking for a way to make my format a little more dynamic, and I have been wanting to bring somebody else on the show in order to have this format be a little more of a dialogue rather than just me talking to you all. So that's why Leah's here, and I'm so glad she decided to join, and we'll go ahead and get started with our chart interpretation. Wanted to make a note that we did have Uranus just go direct this morning. Today's Saturday, August 15th, and at 8:25 a.m., Uranus went retrograde out of its direct motion and went retrograde. So wanted to briefly just talk about like what does that mean, because it is significant as we're heading towards this new moon time that Uranus, one of the bigger planets in the solar system, has turned retrograde. Now, what's interesting is that this actually happens every year for about 5 months. So it's not necessarily something that occurs extremely rarely, but it only occurs one time a year.
Wow, I didn't know that.
Yeah, and so it happened today, and it'll be retrograde for 5 months. And what happens when a planet turns retrograde, really it's a time when that energy becomes more internal for all of us.
Right.
So it's gone from being more of an outward energy that we maybe can identify more clearly in things around us to becoming more of an internal energy that we start to maybe notice more in our personal lives. That being said, I have to say, I was listening to the radio this morning, and I was hearing a lot about the vice presidential pick here in the United States of Kamala Harris, and just what a historic event it has been for the African-American community, especially for African-American women. And if you think about Uranus, that is the planet of humanity, because it rules Aquarius, the sign of the water bearer, which deals with essentially aspects of humanity and how we're all like one.
The collective.
Yes, okay. We're all one group. And even though we are distinct individuals within that one group, Aquarius and subsequently Uranus is all about also, being aware that we are all together and how we impact society, essentially. So that part of it, to me, speaking about Kamala Harris, is like, we're seeing, and we've seen this too, since Uranus went into Taurus back in, I think it was 2018 for the very first time. But it's like these issues of equality in society seem to be coming up. Yeah. But now, just as Uranus has sort of at this stationary period and now turning retrograde, it's like, we're seeing it very clearly, I feel, with this decision here, and just how important it is. And I think also then how it's going to affect subsequently other people in their own lives.
Right. Yeah. How does that work between, the collective and the individual? This is an outer planet, Uranus. And so once it goes retrograde, it's about kind of an inward turn, right?
Yes.
Sort of a look within.
Yes.
So how do you find that
personally?
Yeah. Kind of a manifestation of, or it's a time to consider the collective in a really kind of reflective way?
Sure.
Okay.
Yeah, yes, that's one way. And I see that as like with this vice presidential pick of Kamala Harris and how significant it is for the African American community, I see it ultimately perhaps affecting individuals. And and that is the message that's coming out. It's like now people can see, you know, what they are capable of and feel more like, you know, they can take these bold risks and, you know, make these bold changes in their own lives in that regard. That's one way, but then as it does become even more personal, I would say, and let me also say that Uranus is in Taurus. So Taurus is this earth sign, the second sign of the zodiac. It has to do with what we value, with our values. So it's what we value materially. It's what we value as our personal values that guide our lives. You know,
how appropriate.
Right, right. And it's Uranus, the sign of not only humanity, but progress and innovation and, you know, moving forward in this Taurian sign of like the material world, but also like what are our values, you know? So again, using her as an example, it's like all of a sudden what we're valuing collectively is something that includes more people, you know what I mean? It includes everyone more. So yes, women, African American, you know, all cultures. So then again, your question, turning it more inward, how does it then become even more personal to ourselves? I think, you know, since Uranus is retrograding through January 4th, we're going to have several months to kind of see how this exactly manifests in our own lives as far as like revolutionary values or, you know, changes, progressive changes in what it is that we value on a material level and on a self-value level. Self-worth would be another Taurus word. So I think it's just going to become more of a personal journey for people over the next several months to kind of see.
And I mean, you brought up Kamala Harris and of course the election. It's just, it seems so charged and appropriate for us to kind of take time to reflect on the collective and on ourselves, of course, and our values, because we will be voting.
Absolutely.
And so we'll be making a choice which relates to the collective.
Yep.
And, you know, I just find I'm so amazed that it's all here.
Yeah. In that one little piece of information.
Well, and you know, all of the conversations around the postal service too.
Yes.
You know, I guess that could be interpreted more of a Mercury communication kind of thing, but it's also very collective.
Right.
So that, you know, it will be really, really interesting to see what happens.
Well, I also think too, as you're saying that, like Uranus is a truth bearer, you know, it's very much about truth and revealing truth more. And it, like I said, it's very progressive. It wants to bring humanity together and ultimately make humanity better. But there is something about like Uranus being a very honest energy, a very truth bringing energy. And Taurus, you know, this is, well, I'm not sure exactly where I'm going with this, but I want to say that it has something to do with this whole issue of like, can the post office handle this? And, you know, it's because it's like, we're trying to be told that like, it's not going to work, you know, but it's like, maybe it can if we kind of like are innovative and come together and like, you know, get it together, you know, and maybe this retrograde time, you know, is about really, you know, reorganizing and using new resources, resources and new systems to get it together, because really some states have done it, you know. I think Colorado, actually, I was hearing maybe already has this system in place. I think I saw the mayor of a town in Colorado, or maybe it was the governor of Colorado, but he was kind of basically saying they've got all sorts of checks and balances that they use. Now it's about being able to kind of make this happen as a whole country.
Right.
You know what I mean? Yeah, collectively. Exactly. Wow. Exactly. So that is Uranus having gone retrograde today until the beginning of January. Now, let's move on to the chart of the new moon. As you can see here, we've got the chart brought up, and new moons happen every month. So there's nothing, extremely significant about that per se. But what they are is when the sun and the moon are coming together, and you can see here, they're both at 26 degrees of Leo. And so that means that basically the sun and the moon are kind of like working in conjunction or working together at a new moon time. And the moon relates to kind of collective emotion and feeling. Like when you hear about like, oh, it's crazy, it's a full moon time, people turning into werewolves and stuff like that. That's because it's connected to this idea of like the moon has this emotional power over people in a sense. And so that is a lot of what the moon is about. It's intuition, it's feeling, it's the feminine principle of being receptive. Right. So in general, that is what the moon is about. And we can just look here real quick. It says responding to the immediate flow of life experience. So that's like in being intuitive, right? Expressing feelings, and then expressing the essence of my life experience. Sure. So this is in essence what the moon is symbolic of. It's what we feel, it's what we sense emotionally and intuitively. So now with the new moon, the sun is right there too. And the sun is our light, how we want to shine out into the world. It's our individuality. It's how we want to sort of express ourselves as an individual, basically. So those two energies are together at a new moon time. And what they say about new moons then are that it's like a seeding time. It's a beginning time, right, where the sun and the moon are actually able to, you're able to feel things, and then you can act. Yes, you can express it. Yeah. Wow. Yeah. That's beautiful. Yeah. Because I didn't quite, I didn't think about the new moon being in Leo, which is, the sun rules Leo. Yes. And how beautiful to have those complements together. Absolutely. It feels like a really fluid connection between knowing what you feel and then being able to really get it out there. Because like you said, the sun rules Leo. Right. So this is a very strong position for the sun at this new moon time. And new moons, again, being about beginnings, I really feel with this new moon chart that this is a beginning of like being more of who we really are and stepping more into our Leonian light nature. Right. Yeah. And having like a lot of confidence and courage. Those are Leo qualities that we can express through our emotions and through our individuality out into the world. Right. What are some other words? Heart-centered, dynamism, radiance, romanticism, expressiveness, exuberance, generosity, or yes, narcissism, demands for love and attention, unawareness of feedback or personal limits. Ah, yes. So the shadowy side. Yeah, the shadowy side of Leo can just be needing so much attention. Sure. You don't realize that you're sort of sucking the air out of the room or something like that. But then again, it does feel balanced with the new moon, this dark, there's not even the light of the sun there in a way. It's just this presence. Yes, it's almost more of like the feeling, like really creating a space to like start to really feel all of that Leonian energy within yourself, and to cultivate it.
Oh, that's so beautiful. I love thinking about it like that. You know, like where it's almost like the seeds grow, you know, it's this vision that I have of like a seed under the earth. You know, it's germinating, but it hasn't quite reached the surface yet.
Absolutely.
So
absolutely. Wow. And in fact, that is a good moment for me to bring in what I want to talk about, because really the new moon happens at this time, which is, by the way, if I didn't mention, Tuesday, August 18th at 8:42 p.m. Mountains, when the exact new moon occurs. Yeah. But if you look here, just prior, on the day before, which is the 17th, the moon has moved into the sign of Leo. Actually, this is Pacific Eastern time, so it would be 2 hours earlier, which is 11:38 p.m. on the night of the 16th. The moon has moved into Leo. So all day on the 17th and most of the day on the 18th, before the new moon happens at 8:42 p.m., the moon is in Leo. And so this is called the dark moon time. When the moon has moved into the sign, it's going to have the new moon in, but it hasn't exactly happened yet. And even when the new moon happens, it's still dark. You don't begin to see that the beginnings of the waxing moon for like another day or so. And so this is called the balsamic moon, or dark of the moon.
Oh, beautiful. Wow.
And it was just what you were explaining, and I'll read this here from starsignstyle.com. And this person writes, the moon is in its balsamic phase for 72 hours before the new moon. And during this time, it's in its dark moon phase of the lunar cycle, and it's really a good window to take time out to meditate, contemplate, and completely wind down. Close off, really let go, and go inward. This is the most introverted stage of the cycle, and privacy is paramount as you clear your head, before launching into the new cycle. It's time to get ready for the next moon phase, the new moon, when it starts all over again. So it says, undertake practices that symbolically allow space to bring new things in. Clean your house, spend time alone, schedule, she suggests, or he, schedule major operations, waxings, or hair removal during the balsamic moon phase. If you can, there will be less blood loss as it flows less freely, and recuperation will be supported soon by the waxing moon after the new moon. And then this person suggests the meditation. I'm grateful for release from the things I no longer need, for the closing of situations and relationships that no longer serve me, and for the power of the universe. And then it goes on to say here, biodynamic farmers and gardeners grow in time with the lunar cycles, planting and fertilizing with the waxing moon, that would be the growing moon, cutting, weeding, and purging during the waning moon. The waxing moon energizes flowers and leaves that appear above ground, while the waning moon nourishes the roots. And then says, see if you can attune your activities to La Luna, or Lune, or Loon, soon. See if she supports growth and helps you go with the flow. Go with the flow. Because that's what the moon teaches us about, you know, is the flow.
I know, it's so beautiful.
Yeah. And necessary.
Doing the, you know, this gradual movement of light. It's always been so fascinating to me.
Yes. But I wanted to bring up that point about the dark moon, because you had talked about how, yes, it was this, and so when you think of like a new moon in Leo, you're like, it's Leo, you know, but it's also saying like new moons are really a time of kind of preparing for the new. So they're preceded by this need to really clear out, or create space to clear out, and then become more present for the new. You know, and it takes 2 weeks for that new to really grow and express itself over those couple of weeks and culminates in the full moon. So that's part of the new moon in Leo. Okay. Now there's some things going on with the new moon, and that creates then even more dynamic energy to the new moon. And one of the strongest parts of this new moon would be the fact that it is making what's called a quincunx, or an inconjunct, to Saturn right here in the sign of Capricorn. See, Saturn's at 26 degrees of Capricorn, and if you look at the new moon, Sun and Moon are at 26 Leo. If you were to count degrees from here to there, from Leo to Capricorn, it would be 150 degrees. And that is considered kind of a minor degree, but because it's basically exact at this new moon time, that makes it more significant, you know.
Okay.
And I wanted to just explain what a quincunx is to people in case you're unfamiliar with it. And
so it's the 150 degrees.
Yes. So it's called a quincunx.
Okay.
By the way, I'm reading from this really cool old astrology book called Astrology, the Divine Science, Marcia Moore and Mark Douglas, and it's like this dictionary of,
look at that,
you know,
edge too, this magenta. It's gorgeous. Sorry, I'm a painter.
Right. I love it.
It's so pretty.
I love that. So the quincunx, and I've kind of underlined some things to make it just a little more compact, but again, the 150 degree angle, and it's the theme of adjustment. Okay. And it's a deliberate effort that must be made to resolve the disconjunctive factors. Because if you look at a quincunx, Leo is fire and fixed. Capricorn is earth and cardinal. Right. So there's no connection by element, fire, earth, air, or water. And there's no connection by modality either, right, which is cardinal, fixed, and mutable. So they're just kind of like totally different energies that don't have any, almost like awareness of each other. Sure. You know? Yeah. And then it says a quincunx is a sixth house aspect. It tends to refer to conditions of employment. Now that would be more so in a personal chart, but what they're saying is that if you start here at the eastern part of the chart, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 would be 150 degrees, like from here to there. Sure, yeah. So it's considered a sixth house aspect. So when you see it in somebody's chart, the quincunx can refer to things related to employment when you're doing the interpretation. Right.
But does the sixth house also
Virgo?
And it relates to how you serve, right?
Yep.
How you serve.
Yep.
Your community.
Love that.
So in a way, I mean, that's also appropriate to what we were talking about earlier.
Absolutely. Yes, absolutely. Cool. And when we talk about what Saturn is in this picture too, I think that what you just said will also be a point that can be reiterated. Okay, so that is the quincunx. Oh, and then I had another little thing here about the specific quincunx energy, because like we said, that the sun and moon is in Leo,
I see. Okay,
and then Saturn's in Capricorn. And this is titled Dominion between these two energies. Leonian desire to rule, okay, that's the Leo. And the Capricorn ambition is to rise to the top of the heap.
Oh, so that's similar. Okay, so yeah.
So since Saturn, which rules Capricorn, is coupled with the sun, which rules Leo, power is achieved through restraint. That is Saturn. Individuals born, this is again talking about a birth chart, with this quincunx or combination of influences are determined to attain a position of authority, but they must strive to discipline themselves in order to make responsible use of their organizational talents. An intense desire to succeed often causes them to cultivate a winning personality. You see, that would be the Leo part.
Sure.
and to command allegiance, that would be Leo, by proving what they can do through practical demonstrations.
That's sort of
Saturn. Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
What about this 26 degrees? I'm just curious if that will
shed more light.
Yeah, or the 26 degrees with Capricorn and the Saturn, but also people with natal charts involving 26 degrees, like you mentioned earlier. Does that have the same effect? Like it might be a little bit more charged for at that time?
Yes, if this new moon is happening at 26 degrees, is happening on your sun or moon, or on your ascendant, or maybe it's happening on your midheaven, which is the career house, beginning of the career house. Yes, it again would be more significant to somebody. The actual 26 degree of Leo, I want to get to in a moment here.
I've heard about that book.
Yeah, which talks about each degree more specifically.
Cool.
But let's just finish up with the inconjunct of the new moon at 26 degrees Leo in conjunct Saturn. So for me, what I'm seeing is like, okay, this is a new moon about like wanting to really radiate your light out into the world, through your creativity. I mean, these are new Leo things, your creative expression, your desire to like experience joy in life.
Sure.
This is very much about Leo. It's like pleasure.
Yeah.
Play,
activities.
Play. Yes.
Right?
Yes, exactly. You got it. But it's saying there's something about that Saturn and Capricorn energy that has to be brought into the equation to bring like a groundedness or an authority to the situation.
I see.
That can't just be like, it's
all
just Leo fun. Yes.
Gotta have those rules.
Exactly. Or a strategy. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Okay.
So just, an important point to understand about the dynamics of the new moon chart, So it's great if you're starting to have lots of great new ideas about, maybe new projects or new creative expressions that you want, which is wonderful. I mean, I feel like we all need that right now with all of this, well, many of us, I don't know, with this COVID situation, it's just like more fun, more lightness, more play, but at the same time, like, where is the structure and grounding going to come in as you navigate it, right? Yeah. Okay. So that's part of the new moon energy as well. And the other thing that's going on, jumping back actually to the fact that the new moon is happening on Tuesday in the States on the 18th in the evening, there's a couple of things that are kind of happening preceding the new moon in more of that dark moon time. And on Sunday, the 16th, the sun is going to trine Mars. So here's the sun. It'll be a little bit before the new moon degree exact. See, Mars here is at 24.
I see. Okay.
Yeah. So in fact, we'll just move the chart here for a second. So that is on the 16th, the sun trines Mars.
Sure.
And then on the 17th, the next day, we get a sun conjunct Mercury at 25 degrees of Leo, just before the moon catches up to the sun at 26 degrees of Leo. So during that dark moon time, we're getting the sun and Mars trining, and then we're getting the sun and Mercury coming together for a dialogue, I guess. So there's something that's building as we approach this new moon in Leo, So again, shining our light through the Leonian energy of creativity. Trining is a harmonizing degree of 120 degrees.
Sure.
Mars in Aries, and Mars is in its home sign.
Like, let's get some things done.
Yes.
Let's make this happen.
Yes. starting to feel inspired.
Will. Sure.
Yes, exactly, exactly. So that's coming up as we're moving towards the new moon.
Sure.
Yeah. And then I mentioned again, it's this other energy of the sun and Mercury coming together just before the new moon too. So this could be a lot of the creative ideas.
Okay. You know, curiosity, is that Mercury?
Sure. Well, yes.
Yeah,
And that's also maybe some Leo too.
Sure.
Being curious and but in a playful way. But also, you know, Mercury and the sun in Leo is also very confident, I feel. You know, it's like knowing what you think or
what you want to say or communicate.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah. So this is all going to be bubbling up just prior to the actual new moon.
Okay, that's good.
Yeah.
Because then the new moon will provide that time to slow down and look inward.
Yes.
With a build-up, like a kind of a really intense build-up.
Yeah, sort of some oh gosh, what do I want to say? Just sort of some confidence building, maybe even, you know, like getting clear about things.
Right, but being really careful with how you, I don't know, I just love this combination of the structure of Saturn, you know.
The inconjunct.
Yes, with the 26 degrees.
Yes.
So it's like this momentum and kind of a confidence and a will, but then having a moment to just stop and make sure you look at it in this kind of more measured way.
Yes. I love that.
Yeah, okay, that's good. That's really, I like that too. Because that satisfies this Capricorn in me, I think.
Yes.
You know, like be careful not to be too impulsive or, you know, acting out too, you know, I don't know, without
forethought.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, and I think you're tuning into something too especially with the sun trine Mars, because Aries is super impulsive.
Right.
And so we may be coming up with these really inspired ideas or feeling like there's an urgency perhaps to act. So yes, then after that new moon happens, there is more of a Saturnine influence there that again with the quincunx we have to make an effort to balance because it doesn't come as easily with the quincunx. You know, they're again at odds and we need to like become aware more of it for that reason. Yeah. All right, so that's the energy leading up to the new moon through that dark moon time. And it also might be interesting to point out too, not only is Mercury meeting with the sun, was it the day before? Yes, on the 17th, but on the 16th, as the sun is trining Mars, because Mercury's so close to the sun, Mercury's also trining Mars.
Oh, okay.
You know, so
yeah, I don't know how that would interact. What does that mean?
Mars and Mercury?
Yeah.
Well, again, it's, you know, Mercury being the mind,
sure,
like you mentioned, and communicating.
Yes.
You know, this could be just a very active, stimulating time for the mind, you know, where we want to say a lot of things and we want to, you know, maybe we have a lot of ideas of how we want to try and get ahead, you know, or things that we want to creatively begin to express out into the world through our communication.
Exuberance. Okay.
Yes.
Sure,
yes.
Yeah.
So
it's almost like everything will just be heightened with that Mars energy.
Yes, because it's coming in contact with the sun and with Mercury just before the new moon. So just a lot of energy, mind energy, you know, confidence energy. A part of me wants to say it could even be like part of the clearing out process, because as that dark moon time mentioned, it's like you're sweeping, you're clearing out, preparing for, you know, and maybe there's some discussions that need to be had that would be very mercurial, you know, where you're feeling more confident with the sun in Leo and the Mercury in Leo, and the courage with the Mars and Aries.
For maybe important conversations.
Yeah, that but again, with that sort of almost like an ending kind of vibe, because it's that dark moon clearing out. Exactly. Exactly. Possibility.
Sure.
You know, I'm seeing it in a couple of different ways there. It might just be ideas that you're having and you're like, okay, yeah, these are all the things I really want to like start to do, you know?
Yeah.
But it could also be that also just dialogues with other people as well. Yeah. Okay. And then one other thing I want to mention that's happening at the new moon time, just on the new moon day, but just before the new moon, is Venus in Cancer here at 10 degrees is sextiling Uranus, which has just gone retrograde, in Taurus. So this is happening the same day of the new moon on the 18th of August, but it's a little bit earlier in the day.
Sure.
New moon's at 8:42 p.m. and this aspect is happening at 1:27 p.m. Mountain.
Can you talk about sextiles a little bit? I'm not very versed in that.
Absolutely. I actually had something here about them that I was going to share. So sextiles are a 60-degree angle.
Okay.
And so you can basically, it's like two signs apart. Okay, which means that they're compatible in element.
Okay.
So you've got, in this instance, Taurus, which is an earth energy, and Cancer, which is a water energy.
Right.
So usually sextiles are talked about as like opportunities, but you need to sort of act on them, you know, like they're there, but you need to act, basically.
Swift.
Yeah, be swift, or just know that the opportunity is there to take.
Sure.
Now this is saying negative in the sense that earth and water are like yin.
Sure.
Yeah. So this is saying Taurus sextile to Cancer, and what this describes. The establishment of a home. A special affinity exists between Taurus, in which the moon is exalted. So Taurus rules, Venus rules Taurus.
Right.
But this is saying that there are other signs that, there's other planets that an energy plays itself out in very well.
Sure.
And so the moon plays itself out well through the sign of Taurus. Yeah.
Right. Okay.
So that's what's called exalted.
Sure.
And Cancer, which rules the moon. The procreative act in the former, which would be Taurus, leads to motherhood, Cancer, in the latter. And that's the kind of the blending of the two, that how it works well. People born with this sextile are solidly grounded in their fundamental biological instincts and have old-fashioned ideas about the values and traditions they hold dear. They know what they want and will work patiently to secure their assets, especially insofar as these involve children, the acquisition of land, and the upkeep of property.
Okay.
Women of this type make salacious. This book has such lovely words. I think it was written in the 50s. Salacious housewives and mothers. Men are blessed with a sound business sense and prosper in affairs connected with food, real estate, and construction. Gentleness, sympathy, and a love of children and animals are characteristic of both sexes. These individuals have a practical outlook on life, a respect for tradition, and are endowed with the capacity to appreciate and conserve the gifts of nature.
Okay.
You know, my feeling about this particular sextile, so let's just talk about, it's Venus in Cancer, which Venus relates to, by the way, Venus rules Taurus.
Okay.
So there's something about the fact that Uranus is in Taurus and Venus is in Cancer in the sextile that speaks to perhaps maybe another level of this Uranus and Taurus. And what I mean is, like, I feel like this chart is speaking about really like love, like our love affairs and our desire in our love, essentially, because Venus is about, if we want to look at our little thing here, our social needs, our affection, and our artistic nature. So, but it's in this Cancerian sign of like home and family and mothering and nurturing, like you just said. Yeah. So it's like, this is a Venus that really wants to find security, you know? Now it's sextiling Uranus, which is like, blah, you know, Uranus is totally in some ways different, because Uranus is about being an individual and being eccentric and having independence, you know? So that aspect of Uranus might look at Venus in Cancer and kind of be like, how does this work, you know? But because they're working together in this dynamic, I do think, and because Uranus also is about uplifting humanity.
Right, it kind of relates to a collective as well.
Yeah.
With this feminine sort of energy, this, you know, maybe this relates to this shift I'm feeling with the, you know, the shift from a patriarchal, controlling kind of structure that we've lived in for so long, like 2,000 years or something, and this kind of transition into more of a feminine, Cancerian, nurturing energy.
Yes, I like that. I was listening to a podcast this morning, and this woman was talking about something like that from her own experience of just how societally, you know, the beauty and just how we are kind of culturally conditioned to just become something that attracts, and you know, it's very societal, you know, Uranus, but it's almost like, because Uranus is in Taurus and Venus Venus rules Taurus, it's like, what is this changing value, you know, that in as it's related to the expression of beauty being almost more maternal and more nurturing, as opposed to like the whatever, you know, female archetype of like you know, just, I don't know, like whatever it is,
like an object, kind of like this
thank you.
Yeah,
so
it's almost like the true essence of what Venus is, this like full feminine beauty, love, radiance. I love that. And I actually love this idea that's just coming to me now of Venus being in Cancer and the relationship to Uranus, and even the new moon, and this kind of moment of you know, this, the personal and the collective, you know, it relates. This maybe this is about cultivating that kind of love and beauty and nurturing energy within our own homes personally, the Cancerian home energy, but that it's also, you know, relating to this collective, earthy, you know, long-term Uranus outer planet. Shift.
Absolutely. And I think that also it's kind of saying too that like, as we shine that Leonian light of wanting to radiate ourselves out into the world and being you know, our bright selves and creative expressions, you know, we have to be aware that with that Saturn in Capricorn, there's like a responsibility in a sense about our energy, you know, that maybe can somehow relate back to this sextile as well, where it's like, like a responsibility about our energy, where we're not just, I want to say so frivolous with our energy or something like that, that it's really more focused or grounded in substance, and it's not just flashy and showy and, you know, needing so attention where it becomes those negative expressions of the Leo vibe, you know.
Well, and it also relates to, I was just thinking of the Mercury Sun moment and relationship of like ideas, and then this kind of the idea of innovation, and this new moon and the retrograde, sort of involving these new ideas that might relate to the Venus Uranus sextile, you know, and how I don't really know. It's just it's all coming together. It's so interesting when you break. I've never broken down a chart like this where it's so intricate and you're really examining all of the relationships. But it's incredible how, you know, you find these threads and how they really do communicate with each other and affect each other. And it's so good to just kind of sit with that awareness.
Absolutely. And you know, that Venus in Cancer, I think, to expand on what you were just saying, it's like, that is a Venus that's very, in some ways, very contained, or very, like, let's just read, for example, Venus in Cancer. It would be expressing social needs, affection, and artistic nature sensitively, emotionally, with personal warmth, domesticity, playfulness, spontaneity, and nurturance. You know, so it's like that brings in a very different kind of vibe from just the Leo new moon. That's more like, it makes it more like, not more, but it just makes the chart feel a little more
nuanced, subtle,
personal, but sensitive.
Sensitive.
Expressing ourselves creatively, but with this really kind of nurturing vibe to it.
Emotional,
feeling oriented. That again, if then you can relate it back to that can be connected also to the collective energy of Uranus and progress and change and, you know, innovation, and values, changing values, self-worth energy too, you know.
I mean, it's pretty amazing, just considering that people are working from home, children are staying home, so it does relate to this domestic kind of sphere.
Absolutely.
And the way that our things like work and even management, things like those kinds of things that aren't typically related to the home are there now. So it, you know, again, this kind of fits in with this.
How do we
our times?
And how do we be more creative with it? With the new moon in Leo. You know,
and it's really exciting to think that if, you know, when this pandemic clears and you know, people might be going back to a workplace or a specific you know, designated space for that, how some of those beautiful things that are manifested or created or innovated within these spheres now could become more integrated. Like children, or, you know, I don't know if you've ever cried at work and felt totally ashamed about it, but it's like, you know, that maybe it's not something to be so ashamed about or so taboo. Maybe it won't be viewed that way as much, or, you know, even the more just these humanistic kind of like emotional aspects coming together in these realms of
opening up the work environment to a more honest and real kind of
expression. Not so robotic. I don't know. Maybe that's a stretch
for this. No, I like it. Let's go back to the new moon chart and just make sure we've covered everything. So we're back to the new moon chart and just making sure that there's nothing else to bring up before we go, I would say, into the final piece, which would be the reading of the inside degree of the new moon time. The only other thing I would say to bring up too, is that the next day after the new moon, we are going to be having Mercury, which is at the new moon time at 28 degrees of Leo. So in the last couple of degrees of Leo, the next day it will be moving into the sign of Virgo. And that is going to be right here on the 19th.
Okay.
At 7:29 p.m. Mountain Standard Time, we get Mercury moving into the sign of Virgo. Mercury changes signs every generally 3 weeks or so. So it's not necessarily a significant change, but it is that it's happening just after the new moon. And having it been in Leo prior to this new moon and kind of bringing up a lot of creative ideas, maybe, during this time. And now with the sun, Mercury moving into Virgo, it's like, okay, how do we execute? What are the details that need to be hammered out as we're moving into these next couple of weeks of wanting to manifest the new moon energy?
Right. Okay.
And Virgo is discriminating. It's very analyzing. It parses things out. It's the details. It's how do we break this down and actually accomplish? So that'll be kind of a nice shift.
Yeah, definitely.
With Virgo, Mercury moving into Virgo for 2 or 3 weeks and helping us as we move into the new moon time. We just see how long Mercury stays in the sign of Virgo. It's going to be from that 19th date until the 6th of September, then when it moves into the sign of Libra. Okay. So Virgo is ruled by Mercury. So actually Mercury is pretty comfortable in the sign of Virgo, but it becomes this analyzing, sorting things through kind of energy. So, the mind can start to get really revved up in the sign of Virgo, where you're thinking about everything.
Right, maybe a little bit too micro.
Yes.
The detail,
yes. What are the other energies of Virgo that are sort of the challenging energies?
Criticism, perfectionism, self-deprecation, worry.
Yeah. Okay, worry. Yeah. So it's like just the mind gets almost overly worked. So, and that's going to be going on until the 6th of September. So really just knowing that Mercury's in the sign of Virgo, we can think about things that might help us, like calm the mind more too, through the remainder of the month. Maybe making sure we wake up and do that meditation practice, or we
get into nature.
Right. Yeah, that would be nice. Or really put the mind to work. I mean, that's what Mercury in Virgo wants to do. Yes, it wants to check those tasks off the list.
Yes. Okay.
Balance the checkbook.
That'll be good for me.
So that's just something to know about as we move into the new moon time. We're referring to a book called Inside Degrees by Elias Lonsdale. And I believe I read the intro at some point. And I think they are channeled by this person. They were inspired by the Sabian symbols in astrology. This person says, I use the Chandra symbols and their interpretations to individualize and fine-tune a reading, to drop it down out of astrological abstractions and cliches and into an imaginative journey, a shamanic initiation into which each of us is called through the positions of the sun in our birth charts, or the moon, or any planet, or angles, or whatever we need to focus on. I mean, you can use it for any chart, really, to awaken more.
Yeah, no, I like what I said about an imaginative journey.
Exactly.
Because I've been reading a lot about imagination and how really imagination is like it's the beginning of a fact. If we can be imaginative, it can come into being. And I think that's really beautiful. And imagination really is creativity. And it's kind of what keeps everything going.
Yes. And in astrology, imagination is ruled by Neptune.
Okay.
Neptune also rules one of the planets that rules like channeled information or being open to kind of like divine or something beyond the ego type of information.
Sure,
so that to me connects with imagination. It's like you're getting an insight from somewhere else.
Sure. Yeah. Yeah, exactly. I mean, it really is that way. I mean, where does it come from?
Right.
It's so, yeah, I don't know. I love that. So it's just it's almost like taking these kind of like hard and fast, precise measurements and then bringing it into the imaginative sphere, which can then manifest into the next thing.
Yes.
In a way.
And I think one of the reasons why I wanted to do this experience with you is because I like that you think that way, and it's inspiring.
Yeah. Oh, thank you.
So
Thanks.
So you hear the facts or see the facts, and then you something's happening within you, and then it comes out in sort of a way that I've not necessarily thought of myself.
Sure.
And that to me is inspiring.
Oh, thanks.
Yeah. Okay. So we're going to go to 29 degrees of Leo. Do you want me to read it or do you want to read it?
26 or 29?
Oh, thank you. 26. She's also here to keep my facts straight. Okay. So 26 degrees of Leo. A fire burns at the bottom of an old well. Deeply foundationally held away, asocial and centered upon individual treasures of ancient vintage. You are hostile to close approach. You need leverage and control and are driven toward extreme autonomy, remembering the way it has always been. Deep in there, warmly radiant, you focus upon keeping alive what has gone out upon the surface. A karma of caretaking the mysteries. But your personal expression veers towards crusty, hard-edged, protective and guarding behaviors that become obsessive and almost paranoid. Your rigid commitment is to holding steady and outlasting unsympathetic cycles and contexts, with a note of fierce conviction that this is all that counts. Nothing must moderate or minimize or relativize what has been agreed to and made an iron law.
Wow.
I know. I read this before, and it's just so full.
Right, and I think I need a little time to process that. Wow.
But something I was gathering from it in this particular reading, again, it's like it's talking about like some deep agreement that you are to bring out something from within, but there's an interference. It talked about crusty, obsessive.
Right, your personal expression veers toward crusty, hard-edged, protective, and guarding behaviors that can become obsessive and almost paranoid.
Yeah. Yeah, so like this is new moon in Leo, like, gosh, in conjunct Saturn, crusty.
Yeah.
So it's sort of
hard-edged. Yeah. Rigid.
Yeah. So there's something about, in order to keep that light shining, we have to be aware of that piece of, maybe it's almost like those negative aspects of Leo where it becomes so personal that we can't get the deeper piece of it to come through.
Right, you can't enter the stream. It's so interesting.
Yeah.
Huh.
So 26 degrees Leo, there's a lot there. Is there any other piece of it from the reading that speaks to you again?
I think the thing that resonated with me immediately was this sentence. Actually, these two. You need leverage and control and are driven toward extreme autonomy, remembering the way it has always been. Deep in there, warmly radiant, you focus upon keeping alive what has gone out upon the surface, a karma of caretaking the mysteries. So that's pretty interesting. It's almost like in this like deep, almost lonely, isolated space, there's something about being the guardian somehow of this, what's been released to the surface, which feels more collective to me. This karma of caretaking the mysteries.
Yes.
So it's, you know, this deep, low well.
Yes.
Which really is an old well.
Yes.
I mean, that's pretty beautiful.
It feels more personal than just the self somehow.
Yes. This very ancient kind of energetic that maybe is personal, but it's like transmitted almost to along. It almost feels like a bundle or something, some sacred kind of thing that's passed very personally through, you know, generations, but is very intimate, personally intimate, maybe. I don't know. I'll have to think about this. But it does seem to suggest that it's important to not allow it to be like iron law and absolute in the sense that it's so individualized. You know, it seems like there's that danger of it becoming that way. But it's important to, you know, think about this being you know, something for not just yourself. Because of this sentence, your personal expression veers toward. Your rigid commitment is to holding steady and outlasting unsympathetic cycles and contexts with a note of fierce conviction that is all that counts. Nothing must moderate or minimize or relativize what has been agreed to and made in iron law. Okay, that's interesting. So it's really, maybe I misinterpreted that at first.
So it's like not getting distracted.
Yeah. But this paranoia and obsessive, this is really fascinating. Yeah, I don't know. I'm gonna have to sit with this one for a while.
Yeah, it
does feel like
paragraph.
Protecting. Yeah, like something very sacred, very deep.
And
very
not
holy.
But it feels like with that Leo energy, it's saying like don't take it too personally somehow. You know, the obsessive.
Right.
You know, and it's like for the whatever it is to come out, this ancient thing that, you know, is karmic law, and is, you know, it's like we can't get distracted perhaps by taking things too personally, basically, which would be kind of a Leonian quality, you know, in order to sort of stay on our mission, or you know, our beautiful mission of like bringing forth ancient wisdom, something like that.
Beautiful.
Well, maybe we'll end it there. And just want to say thank you. I know, you know, this is the first time you've done anything like this, and I really appreciate you joining me. And
this is really fun.
I hope we have a chance to do it again in the future. And if you all like this video, please give it a thumbs up and subscribe to the channel, and have a very peaceful and restful, thoughtful, happy new moon.
Yes.
Yeah, we'll see you later.